He was devouring my retirement while pretending to be a good son-in-law. I'm sitting on the balcony of my apartment in Beacon Hill. From here, I can see the Boston skyline, a city I know so well after spending my entire life here. I'm 67 years old now, and I'm finally breathing without the weight I carried to my chest. The air feels different when we breathe freely. My name is Joan Baker. For 32 years, I worked for Social Security serving the public. 32 years of hearing stories of pain, dealing with the frustration of people who depended on a system that wasn't always fair. 32 years being the face of bureaucracy for citizens already weakened by illness or old age. Mom, it's not my fault if your benefit was denied. That's what I wanted to say every day, but I swallowed the words along with my pride. Protocol didn't allow us to show emotions, even when we were called the worst names, insults that came from desperate people. I understood, but that didn't make it easier to hear. In 1998, after an elderly man spat in my face because his disability claim had been denied, I developed panic disorder. At the time, my daughter Marina, my only child, was just 14. Her father had already left to start another family when she was 10. It was just her and me. I remember the doctor prescribing Xanax like it was vitamin C. It'll help you sleep and face the next day, Mrs. Baker. And so it went for decades. The small pill under my the bitter taste that preceded moments of apparent normality, all to be able to wake up, put on the gray Social Security uniform, and sit behind that service counter. If you don't help me, how will I feed my children? I'm dying, and you want more documents. Lazy government worker. Phrases that repeated every day while I typed data into a system that was frequently offline. But I needed that salary. Marina dreamed of going to college for business administration, and I dreamed of giving her what I never had. During extended holidays, while colleagues traveled with their families, I worked overtime to supplement my income. During the holidays, when many celebrated with expensive gifts, I saved every possible cent in the bank for Marina's college. When my back started hurting from years sitting in the same uncomfortable chair, I bought an orthopedic cushion and carried on. There was no time to tend to pain when there were bills to pay. Marina graduated. The pride I felt watching her receive her diploma made up for every sleepless night, every anxiety attack suppressed with medication. It was around this time that she met Tyler, tall, smiling, with those defined muscles of someone who spends hours at the gym. He was a personal trainer at one of the most expensive fitness clubs in Boston, the kind frequented by people who don't look at price tags. Tyler was 27 when he started dating my daughter, who was already 32. I admit that at first I wrinkled my nose, age difference, unstable profession, but he seemed to love her. Their wedding took place in 2016, a simple but beautiful ceremony. I used all my savings to give Marina the celebration she deserved. I remember Tyler hugging me tightly during the reception. Mrs. Baker, you're now my mother too. I believed him. Maybe because I desperately wanted to believe that we would finally have a complete family, that this handsome, charismatic young man really saw me as a second mother, that my daughter had found someone who would respect and care for her, as I had always tried to do. The years passed and I continued at Social Security until 2020 when I could finally retire. 30 years of contribution, fragile mental health, and a retirement pension of $7,800. A figure considered privileged by American standards, but one that represented 3 decades service and daily sacrifices. It was in March 2023 that the visits began. Tyler would appear at my apartment almost always at the same times when Marina was at work. At first, they were quick visits. Mrs. Baker, I was passing by and came to see if you need anything. I brought this medicine that Marina asked me to deliver. Later, the visits became longer. He would sit down, ask for coffee, chat about trivialities. I felt flattered. What mother-in-law wouldn't enjoy having her son-in-law's company? Until I noticed a strange pattern. Every time Tyler left, something seemed different in the kitchen. The cookie jar emptier, the cake I had made that morning with a few slices missing, the packet of Parmesan cheese that I was sure was sealed now open and half gone. I'm going senile, I'm initially thought. At 66, it was normal to start doubting your own memory. One Tuesday, I prepared a flan with caramel sauce from my mother's recipe. I put it in the refrigerator for dessert after dinner. Marina was supposed to come with Tyler and I wanted to please them. Tyler showed up alone at 2 p.m. He said Marina was swamped with work and couldn't come, We talked for half an hour. He went to the bathroom, had a glass of water in the kitchen, and said goodbye. That night, when I opened the refrigerator to serve the flan as dessert for my solitary dinner, half of it was gone. A perfect cut, as if someone had carefully removed 50% of the dessert. This was the first moment I felt a chill down my spine. It wasn't forgetfulness. Someone was eating my food behind my back, and it could only be Tyler. During subsequent visits, I started paying more attention. I noticed how his eyes scanned the rooms, how he always managed to spend a few minutes alone in the kitchen, how he frequently went to the bathroom with the backpack he always brought. One day, I left my purse on the sofa while preparing the coffee he always requested. When I returned to the living room, Tyler was sitting on the other side checking his phone. The purse seemed to be in the same place, but something told me it had been moved. That night, when checking my wallet, I confirmed it. $150 was missing. Money that I was certain I had set aside to pay the manicurist the next day. I must have spent it on something and forgotten. I tried to convince myself. After all, accusing my only daughter's husband of theft was unthinkable. What proof did I have? An old woman with symptoms of dementia, accusing a respectable 35-year-old man. Who would believe me? I started keeping my purse in my bedroom locked when he visited. The visits continued for months, and I kept feeling that something was wrong. But I didn't want to create conflicts. I had endured so many humiliations during my professional life that perhaps I had normalized being disrespected. In July 2023, I received a Chase credit card bill that made no sense. There were purchases at a supplement store I had never frequented. No $980 spent on products with strange names. Whey protein, creatine, BCAAs, words that had never been part of my vocabulary. I called the bank claiming fraud. The representative kindly explained that the purchase had been made in person with the chip and PIN. They count the card and sent another. I attributed the incident to some skilled scammer and moved on. 2 months later, the scene repeated itself. Another $870 in supplements. New card requested. I started noting other signs. Tyler frequently asked about my retirement with seemingly innocent questions. Mrs. Baker, are you able to save anything each month with that pension? Doesn't health insurance consume a lot of your budget? Have you ever thought about investing that money in something? In December 2023, my new side-by-side refrigerator purchased after years of savings started displaying items I had never bought. Protein tubs, sports drinks, zero-calorie sodas. When I questioned Marina about this, she seemed confused. Mom, you must have bought it and forgotten. I'm concerned about these memory lapses. It was easier for everyone to believe I was senile than to consider the possibility that Tyler was using my house as an extension of his own. My money, as a supplement to his. In January 2024, I began to notice changes in Tyler's attitude toward me during family lunches. The excessive affection of before gave way to cold courtesy. The prolonged hugs were replaced by quick kisses on the cheek. Exclusive conversations on the sofa transformed into minimal interactions. Fine, Mrs. Baker, was all he would say before diving into his phone. Marina didn't seem to notice. She was always busy with work, with friends, with the gym that Tyler had convinced her to attend. When we were alone, I tried to probe. Marina, is everything okay between you and Tyler? Of course, Mom. Why, he seems different with me. That's your imagination. He adores you. Always talks about you. And I believed or forced myself to believe. Because the alternative was too painful to consider. Tyler's visits during the day continued now with a new element. He began bringing correspondence for me to keep. Mrs. Baker, this arrived for me, but I don't want Marina to see it yet. It's a surprise. They were always sealed envelopes that I faithfully stored in a desk drawer. I never opened them, respecting the couple's privacy. After all, what harm could there be in keeping a few letters? In March 2024, a year after the visits began, I received a call from the bank manager. Mrs. Baker, we'd like to confirm if you're aware of the personal loan requested in your name for $32,000. I hadn't requested any loan. I rushed to the bank where I discovered that my data had been used to start the process. Fortunately, the manager who had known me for years found the request strange and blocked the procedure. Are you sure no one close to you would have access to your documents? He asked gently. At that moment, the image of Tyler rummaging through my house while I prepared coffee invaded my mind, but I still wasn't ready to accept it. I thanked the manager and left the bank with the first seed of a terrible suspicion planted at home. I went to the drawer where I kept the envelopes that Tyler had asked me to store. For the first time, I opened them. It was a credit card bill in his name, but with my address as the reference for correspondence. When checking the expenses, my heart raced. Expensive restaurants that Marina never mentioned having gone to, hotels in nearby cities, luxury clothing stores. I opened another envelope. More bills, more unjustifiable expenses for a personal trainer who I knew didn't earn that much. A third envelope contained bank statements with regular deposits of amounts close to those in thousand. Always on the days when I received my retirement pension, the truth began to reveal itself, painful like an open wound exposed to salt. For months, perhaps for more than a year, Tyler had been systematically robbing me. Small amounts in cash, clone cards for purchases, food from my pantry, and now attempted loans in my name. But the worst wasn't the material values. It was the betrayal, the exploitation of trust, the understanding that for him I was never a second mother. I was just that old fool he could manipulate. I sat in the living room armchair, the same one where I had so many times received Tyler with coffee and cookies and cried as I hadn't cried since my mother's death. Tears of disappointment, of shame for being so naive, and mainly of fear for what this meant for Marina, because now I was almost certain. If Tyler was capable of betraying me this way, what else might he be hiding? What kind of man had my daughter really married? I dried my tears and took my Xanax. I needed to think clearly. Confronting Tyler directly could result in vehement denials, and Marina might not believe me. I needed concrete, irrefutable proof. It was just the beginning of a journey that would completely change my life. As I sit here in this new apartment that represents my freedom, I find myself wondering how many of you have been betrayed by someone you trusted. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching this story from. Sometimes knowing that we aren't alone in this world is the first step toward healing. You know that feeling that something is missing, but you can't define exactly what. That's how it was for at least a year. Tyler's small oversights were transforming into something more systematic, if he were testing how far he could go with me. June 2023 was when I first noticed money disappearing from my purse. At first, I thought I was becoming forgetful. Maybe a side effect of the Xanax I've been taking for years. I always left my purse hanging on the coat rack in the living room, a habit of someone who lived for decades with fear of robbery. The $50 disappeared, then 100. The third time, I noted in a small notebook I hid in my sock drawer. 300 disappeared today. Zo 7/17/2023. Mom, you're getting paranoid. You must have spent it and forgotten. Marina said when I mentioned it without naming Tyler. Of course, I began counting the money in my wallet before he arrived and after he left. The difference always matched up. I started making discrete marks on the bills with a fine-tipped pen, a little dot in the corner. The marked bills always disappeared. In September, I received a Chase notification about a 780 purchase at a store called Premium Supplements, which I had never heard of. I called immediately. You authorized the in-person purchase at 3:47 p.m., Mrs. Baker, the representative informed me. It was a Tuesday. I was at the church knitting group, as I have been every Tuesday since 2019. How could I have made an in-person purchase? Coincidentally, that same Tuesday, Tyler had stopped by for coffee because he was in the area. He knew I would be out. I counted the card, but said nothing. When the new one arrived, I kept it in an empty cookie tin on top of the kitchen cabinet. 2 months later, food delivery charges I had never made began appearing. Protein Akai, Whole Foods, Brutus Burger, gym food, the kind eaten by people who care about proteins and supplements. Me who can barely climb stairs without my knee complaining, buying whey protein. It was obvious, but I still refused to see it. December 2023, Christmas Eve. Marina invited me to spend Christmas Eve at their house as we always did. Mom, did you order an Uber Eats delivery to our house? She asked, confused over the phone. What order, honey? Says here it's a pre-workout and creatine kit worth $420. It came in your name, but they delivered it here. My heart raced. It was the confirmation I needed, but still didn't want to accept. Must be some mistake, honey. Cancel it. Tyler said he'll handle it. He knows the store. Of course, he did. I began monitoring every cent. I created an Excel spreadsheet, as I had learned at Social Security before retiring. In 2023 alone, there were $17,640 charged to my card that I didn't recognize. Small purchases scattered, almost imperceptible among the normal bills. January 2024. Tyler's visits became more frequent. He always appeared with some excuse. I was passing by and remembered you love French bread. Or, Marina asked me to check if you need anything. Sweet words that hid bitter intentions. I started having horrible dreams. I dreamed I was at the Social Security counter again, but instead of restraining the outraged, it was Tyler yelling at me in front of everyone. You're an incompetent old woman, you can't even take care of your own money. In March 2024, Marina called me concerned. Mom, Tyler says you're lending him money. My blood froze. What do you mean, honey? He mentioned that you've been helping him with expenses for the new gym he wants to open. He said, you're an angel who's investing in his future. I took a deep breath. It was the moment to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. I thought about my only daughter's marriage, the 8 years they had been together, the possibility of being the cause of the end of it all. Yes, I'm helping a little bit. I lied, choking back tears. That night, I increased my Xanax dose to be able to sleep. For the first time in many years, I cried myself to sleep. Not for the money, but for the betrayal, the manipulation, for feeling used by the person who should protect me in my old age, not exploit me. In June, I discovered that Tyler requested an additional credit card on my account. He had managed to forge my signature on some document. The bank manager showed me the paper, a signature that looked like mine, but with stronger masculine strokes. You authorized this additional card in the name of Tyler Dunn in April this year, stated the manager, showing the computer screen. I never authorized that. I replied with a trembling voice. I'm sorry, but we have the signed documentation. I left the bank devastated. Somehow, the money didn't even matter anymore. It was the violation of trust. The feeling of being deceived, used, the humiliation of being considered so insignificant that I could be robbed openly. July and August were months of silent anguish. I cut the additional card, changed the bank passwords, and started keeping money in different hiding places around the house. I began measuring the level of products in the refrigerator. I took photos with my cell phone of the exact position of my things before leaving to confirm if they had been moved when I returned. On a Sunday afternoon, Marina called excitedly. Mom, Tyler is planning a surprise for his birthday in October. It's going to be at the Boston Harbor Hotel. He's already booked the hall for 180 people. We're so happy. I quickly did the mental math. An event like that would cost at least $40,000. Where would this money come from? Tyler, with his neighborhood gym and a few private clients, never had that kind of income. Marina, an administrative employee at a laboratory, earned well, but not enough to finance a party of this size. How wonderful, honey, I replied with a lump in my throat. After hanging up, I opened the bank app. There was a recent transfer of $15,000 to an account I didn't recognize. The description simply said, "Vent reservation." I felt my chest tighten. My $7,800 retirement, the fruit of 32 years serving people who weren't always kind, was feeding my son-in-law's vanity. Then came September 19, 2024, a Thursday. I will never forget it. I was at C. Peeply Place looking for a gift for a friend from the knitting group when I received an email from Chase. Payment receipt. Boston Suites Motel, 420. I stood paralyzed in front of the Tiffany storefront, staring fixedly at the cell phone screen. A motel with my card. I quickly opened the app and there it was, a purchase made exactly at 20:22 p.m. that same day. Marina was working, I was at the mall, and Tyler, something inside me exploded. It wasn't just the money. It was the clear crystalline perception that he wasn't only robbing me financially, but was also cheating on my daughter, using my money to finance his extramarital adventures. I felt the air leave me. My vision started to darken at the edges like an old photograph slowly burning. The people around me became colored blotches, their voices distant as if they were underwater. Ma'am, are you okay? I heard someone ask, the voice distorted. I couldn't respond. My breathing accelerated uncontrollably like a broken engine. My legs lost their strength and I slid to the floor, still clutching my cell phone. Call security, I think it's a heart attack, a woman shouted. It wasn't my physical heart that had broken, but something deeper. The trust, the dignity, the self-respect that I still tried to preserve. The mall's security arrived quickly. Someone called an ambulance. I vaguely remember being placed on a stretcher, the sound of the siren, the lights of the hospital ceiling passing quickly above me as I was transported down the corridor. Massachusetts General Hospital. Diagnosis: severe anxiety attack with hyperventilation, blood pressure 181/10. Do you take any medication regularly? The doctor asked. Xanax since 1998. I managed to answer between labored breaths. They kept me for hours monitoring my vital signs while the intravenous medication took effect. As my body calmed, my mind became clearer, more determined. Lying in that hospital bed with a heart monitor beeping beside me, I made a decision. I would no longer be the old fool. I would no longer be eaten from behind. Neither my money nor my food nor my trust. Marina appeared at the hospital frightened. Mom, what happened? They called me saying you had an attack at the mall. High blood pressure, honey. Nothing serious. I lied, protecting her for now. Where's Tyler? At the gym giving a class. He said he'll come as soon as he can. Of course he did. He was probably still at the Boston Suites motel, spending my money in the arms of another woman, while I was in a hospital bed, and his wife, my daughter, worried at my side. I was discharged the next morning. Marina insisted that I stay at their house for a few days. I vehemently refused. I need my space, honey. My house, my things. I'll be fine. She didn't understand my resistance, but respected it. Upon arriving home, the first thing I did was sit down at the computer. I needed answers, concrete proof. I accessed the Chase website and requested all the statements from the last 18 months. One by one, I began analyzing each purchase, each transaction. I created a new, more detailed spreadsheet. I separated by categories: gym, supplements, restaurants, motel. Yes, motel. It wasn't the first time. There were at least 11 visits to different motel in Boston in recent months. Always at strange hours, always on weekdays. The monthly average of unauthorized expenses: $200. Money that would have paid for the good health insurance that I so needed for my knees. Money that I could have used to travel to see places I had always dreamed of. Money that I had earned serving desperate people for their benefits, facing insults and threats for 32 years. And the worst part wasn't the money. It was knowing that while I suffered silently, so as not to cause problems in my daughter's marriage, Tyler wasn't just robbing me, but also cheating on Marina. He used my money to finance his betrayals. That night, looking at the spreadsheets with more than $75,000 of fraudulent expenses accumulated, I understood that I was facing a choice. Continue to be consumed by shame and fear, or transform this pain into something more powerful. I looked at the 30-year public service medal hanging on the living room wall. I remember all the challenges I had faced alone. Raising Marina without a present father, dealing with threats from angry beneficiaries, enduring tyrannical bosses, surviving several Social Security reforms that always took away more rights. If I had survived all that, I would survive an opportunistic son-in-law. The next morning, instead of increasing my Xanax dose, as I did in times of crisis, I halved it. I needed a clear mind. Controlled anger, indignation as fuel, not as an uncontrolled explosive. Tyler appeared in the afternoon with a bouquet of cheap flowers, probably bought at a street corner. Dear mother-in-law, how are you feeling? Marina told me about the scare. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The perfectly arranged hair, the tight gymmed shirt to show off his muscles, the fake smile that never reached his eyes. How could I have been so blind for so long? I'm better, Tyler. Thanks for your concern. You need to take care of yourself. At your age, any scare can be dangerous. At my age, as if my 67 years were a death sentence, a justification for treating me as disposable. As if my age were an excuse to abuse my trust, my money, my kindness. You're right, Tyler. At my age, we need to be more careful. He didn't even catch the double meaning. Narcissistic people rarely perceive indirect messages. If you need anything, we're here. By the way, you're coming to my birthday, aren't you? It's going to be special. I wouldn't miss it for the world, I replied. It would indeed be special, but not in the way he expected. After he left, I did something I never thought I would do in my life. I searched the internet for how to discover cheating through a cell phone. After hours reading forums and watching videos, I concluded that I would need professional help. That's how I found a referral for a data recovery technician, a hacker to be direct, who could remotely access WhatsApp conversations. It would cost $2,000, but it would be an investment, not an expense. That night, lying in bed, I thought of Marina. How devastating it would be for her to discover everything at once. The pain she would feel. But then I remembered the 11 visits to motel, The messages that I still didn't know about but suspected existed. The stolen money, not just from me, but from her future as well. Sometimes true love requires momentary cruelty, like ripping off a band-aid all at once instead of prolonging the pain by pulling slowly. The next day, I transferred $2,000 to an anonymous account as instructed by the specialist I had contacted. I provided Tyler's phone number and waited. In 48 hours, I received a link to a compressed file, password to decompress, Justice 67, the number I indicated representing my age. When I opened the file, my world fell apart. Hundreds of conversations with women from the gym, with former students, with escorts, with my daughter's friends, with the manicurist from the salon that Marina frequented. The messages were explicit, vulgar photos that I should never have seen, plans for meetings in motel during hours, when he was supposedly giving classes, complaints about Marina. My wife doesn't understand my potential. I live with a square woman. When I'm with you, I feel truly alive, and worse still, references to me. My mother-in-law is a foolish old lady. She doesn't even notice when I take money from her purse. I use the old lady's card for us to meet. She thinks they're mistakes on the bill, an 8,000 retirement just sitting there. Someone has to make that money circulate. I printed everything, each conversation, each photo, each insult, each plan, each lie. I organized them in a red folder. I dated each page. I marked each interaction with colored post-its by category. Yellow for messages about money, pink for intimate meetings, green for offenses to Marina, blue for references to me. 47 messages with 6 different women in 18 months. Sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by that evidence of a double or sexable life, to be exact, I felt a strange calm envelope me. It was no longer just about me. It was about Marina, too. About honor. About truth, about consequences. If you've been following my story up to here, and want to know how I faced this terrible moment, subscribe to the channel. Just as I had to understand what was happening to be able to react, you too need to be alert so that people like my son-in-law Tyler don't go unnoticed in your life. I kept all the documentation in a safe that I bought, especially for this purpose. I placed it on top of my bedroom closet behind shoe boxes I never use. The password, the date that changed everything. Tyler's birthday would be on October 12th, less than a month away. Time enough to plan every detail of what would follow. That night, for the first time in many months, I didn't need Xanax to sleep. The clarity that comes after the storm has a surprising calming effect. I knew exactly what I needed to do because a son-in-law who eats behind your back deserves to be exposed to his face. And I, Joan Baker, an exemplary Social Security employee for 32 years, had learned a lot about justice throughout my life. That morning, leaving Massachusetts General Hospital, I was no longer the same Joan. Something had fundamentally changed within me, as if a key had turned in a lock, rusted by decades of conformity. When the taxi dropped me off at home, I spent almost an hour sitting on the balcony observing Boston's gray sky, so characteristic of September, while mentally organizing my next steps. The first of these was to call Vera, my friend of 25 years from Social Security days, the only person I trusted to tell the complete truth to. "Vera, I need your help," I said as soon as she answered. "What happened, Joe? Your voice sounds different. If I tell you that I want to investigate someone, would you think I'm crazy?" The silence on the other end of the line lasted only a few seconds, but seemed like an eternity. After 30 years dealing with Social Security fraudsters, I think we're both well qualified for an investigation, she finally replied with that practical tone I always admired. "Who's the target?" When I finished telling everything, Vera let out a curse I had never heard come of her mouth in all our years of friendship. "Son of a sorry, Joan, but this can't go on like this. Remember Marlene from the medical examination department? The one who retired due to disability after that burnout? That's the one. Her husband is a retired investigator from the Boston PD. If there's anyone who can guide you on how to proceed legally, it's him." 2 days later, I was sitting in Nelson Ferrer's kitchen, a man with completely white hair and a keen gaze who analyzed my spreadsheets with the attention of someone had examined criminal evidence for 35 years. "Mrs. Baker, what we have here is a classic case of fraud with the aggravating factor of elder abuse," he stated after examining each document. "You have 2 options. Go directly to the police with this evidence or collect even more evidence to make the case irrefutable. And which do you think is better?" Nelson removed his reading glasses and looked at me. From my experience, in cases involving family, the more concrete evidence, the better. Especially if you want to protect your daughter in the process. It was Nelson who guided me on how to proceed with hiring the specialized service to access Tyler's messages. He explained that technically it was a gray area of the law, but that considering the crimes already committed against me, it could be justifiable in court, as the last resort of a vulnerable elderly person being systematically exploited. I'm not officially recommending it, understand? He explained. I'm just saying that I've seen judges consider this type of evidence in similar cases, especially when there's a documented history of previous attempts to resolve the situation. To create this documented history, Nelson helped me draft formal letters to the bank questioning suspicious transactions, file a police report for theft without mentioning names, and consult an attorney specialized in crimes against the elderly. Dr. Paul Mendez, the attorney recommended by Nelson, was another fundamental piece in this puzzle. In his office in Beacon Hill, he guided me on the Elder Justice Act. Mrs. Baker, what's happening to you constitutes financial elder abuse with a penalty of 1 to 4 years in prison, he explained, adjusting his navy blue tie. But I understand your hesitation to expose your daughter to this trauma. Let's build a solid case before any judicial action. I left these meetings with strengthened confidence, not just from the professional guidance, but from the simple fact that qualified people confirmed. I wasn't exaggerating, I wasn't senile. I wasn't confused. What Tyler was doing was wrong. It was criminal, and I had the right to defend myself. During the following weeks, my house transformed into a veritable operation center. In the bedroom that was once Marina's and now served as my office, I assembled a board with all the information I could gather about Tyler. Photos of him on social media with gym students, screenshots of his Instagram stories visiting expensive places, receipts for purchases made with my card that I managed to recover. In an Instagram post from April 2024, I found Tyler posing with a Rolex watch that certainly cost more than $30,000. In the caption, working hard and reaping the rewards. What hard work would pay for that watch? Certainly not the 120 per hour classes he charged at the neighborhood gym. It was during this period that I met Jessica, a former student of Tyler's who had stopped frequenting his gym after an inappropriate approach. Finding her was pure coincidence or destiny if you believe in that. I was at the pharmacy buying my Xanax when I heard her comment to the attendant about that disgusting personal trainer from Back Bay. I couldn't help but approach. Excuse me, are you talking about Tyler Dunn? Her gaze hardened instantly. You know him. Unfortunately, he's my son-in-law. Jessica hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. Don't worry. I think we have more in common than you might imagine. We had coffee together that afternoon. Jessica, 28, a physical therapist, had been Tyler's student for 6 months until he started sending suggestive messages late at night, offering free private training sessions. When she clearly rejected him, he started treating her badly at the gym, criticizing her in front of other students until she gave up frequenting the space. I discovered later that I wasn't the only one, she recounted, nervously stirring the spoon in her coffee. He has a pattern. He approaches students. If they respond, it becomes an affair. If they reject him, he makes their lives hell until they quit the gym. Jessica introduced me to 2 other women who had gone through similar situations. Camila, 32, a lawyer, and Patricia, 26, a nutrition student. Both confirmed the same predatory pattern of behavior. He acts like the gym is his personal harem. Camila confided during a lunch I organized for all of us, and he brags about it among the other instructors. One of them, Renato, even resigned because he couldn't stand his attitude anymore. This Renato became another valuable source of information. A serious 30-year-old man, indignant at his former colleague's behavior, told me about the parties Tyler organized in expensive motel, always flaunting money that clearly didn't match his declared salary. He always said he had a cash cow that financed everything, revealed Renato without knowing that the cash cow in question was me. He would show the black credit card and laugh, saying the old lady didn't even notice. Each new account was like a knife being twisted in my wound. But it also served as fuel for my determination. It wasn't just about me now. It was about all these people that Tyler had manipulated, used, discarded. In the second week of October, with Tyler's birthday approaching, I received the file with the WhatsApp messages I had requested. The content was even worse than I had imagined. Besides the 6 women with whom he maintained parallel relationships, there were conversations with friends where he openly mocked Marina and me. My fool of a wife thinks I'm giving an extra class. Lol. My mother-in-law is a walking ATM man. No pin, just take it. When the old lady kicks the bucket, I'll convince Marina to give me part of the inheritance for sure. The most shocking thing was discovering that he planned to put me in a nursing home as soon as Marina got pregnant. When a child comes, I'll convince Marina that her mother needs special care. We'll put her in a cheap nursing home and sell the old lady's apartment. Stunts. I remember reading this message sitting at the kitchen table. With the afternoon sun coming through the window, I sat paralyzed looking at the computer screen while a cold hatred grew inside me. It wasn't just my money he wanted. It was my house, my freedom, my dignity. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept analyzing each message, each photo, each lie. The anger gave way to a calculated calmness that I had never felt before. I took a new notebook and began writing a detailed plan. In the following days, I did 3 important things. First, I transferred all my savings to a new bank account that I opened at another bank. Second, I consulted an attorney specialized in real estate law to ensure that my apartment was legally protected. Third, and most importantly, I began researching audiovisual technology companies that could help me with what I planned for Tyler's birthday party. Prism Projections, a small company specialized in corporate events, was my choice. Raphael, the young owner, initially hesitated when I explained my plan. Mrs. Baker, I understand your situation, but we don't want to get involved in something that could generate a defamation or privacy invasion lawsuit. He explained, concerned. That's when I showed him a small selection of messages where Tyler explicitly admitted to robbing me. This isn't an exposure of privacy, Raphael. It's an exposure of a crime. After consulting his attorney, Raphael accepted the job with the condition that I sign a term assuming all legal responsibility for the content presented. The logistics of the plan required several discreet visits to the Boston Harbor Hotel. With the excuse of wanting to get to know the venue to possibly become a member, I managed to map the hall where the party would take place, identify the PowerPoints, the exits, and mainly the existing projection system that would be used for photos and videos during the celebration. Marina innocently kept me updated on every detail of the surprise party she was organizing for her husband. The theme would be overcoming, an irony that she didn't perceive since Tyler had convinced everyone that his gym was prospering thanks to his tireless effort. We even hired a big screen to show a video with testimonials from his friends. "Mom, it's going to be emotional," she told me enthusiastic, not knowing that the same screen would serve a very different purpose. A week before the party, I had a relapse. The weight of what I was about to do, the impact it would have on my daughter's life, the possible legal consequences, all of this hit me like an avalanche. I called Vera in panic. "I can't do this. I'll destroy Marina's life." "Joan Baker," she responded firmly. "Marina's life is already being destroyed just solely by that snake she calls a husband. You aren't creating the problem. You're just revealing it. But what if she hates me for this? What if she never forgives me? And what if 10 years from now she discovers that you knew everything and did nothing?" That question echoed in my mind for days. What was the most genuine way to love my daughter at that moment? Spare her the immediate pain, or protect her from years of continued betrayal? I decided to consult Dr. Helena Gomez, a psychologist specialized in family trauma. In her cozy office in Beacon Hill, I poured out all my doubts and fears. "Mrs. Baker, there's no easy answer to your dilemma," she said after listening attentively. "But based on my clinical experience, I can say that discoveries like this are always traumatic, regardless of how they occur. The difference lies in the support the person receives after the revelation. And how can I better support her? By being present without judging, without saying, 'I told you so.' Oh, just embracing her pain and respecting her grieving process for the marriage she believed she had." Our meeting gave me the clarity I lacked. I would proceed with my plan, but adapt the post-revelation approach. It wouldn't be about revenge for the humiliation I suffered, but about freeing my daughter from a lie that was consuming our family. In the 3 days leading up to the party, I barely slept. I obsessively reviewed every detail of the plan, checking and checking the files that would be projected, the exact moments, the escape routes if something went wrong. I bought a new dress for the occasion, navy blue, elegant but discreet. I reserved a trusted rideshare driver who would be available all night. I prepared a small kit with anxiety medications, both for me and for Marina. The night before the party, I wrote a letter to my daughter explaining everything I had discovered and why I chose to reveal it that way. Not to humiliate her, but so that the truth would be undeniable, so that Tyler couldn't manipulate her with half-truths and excuses, as he had done with me for so long. I left the letter in a sealed envelope with my neighbor, Mrs. Eliza, with instructions to deliver it to Marina if something happened to me at the party. Hypertension and anxiety together can be dangerous in extreme situations, and I was about to face the most extreme of all. On the morning of the big day, October 12, 2024, I woke up strangely calm. A peace that I hadn't felt in a long time had settled in me during the night. I looked out the window at the exceptionally blue Boston sky, rare for this time of year, and felt as if it were a sign. I took my 30-year service medal and put it in my dress pocket, not to display it, but as a talisman, a reminder that I had faced challenges before and survived. When the clock struck 6:30 p.m., I was ready, physically, emotionally, psychologically prepared for what would follow. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time, and didn't see a fragile elderly woman a victim. I saw a determined woman ready to restore her dignity and protect her daughter from the same pain she had suffered. The driver arrived punctually at 7:00 p.m. In the back seat of the car, I took a deep breath and visualized each step I would take in the coming hours. The plan was in motion. There was no turning back. To the Boston Harbor Hotel, please, I instructed the driver, my voice firm and decided. As the car crossed the illuminated streets of Boston, I felt as if I were on my way not just to a party, but to a tribunal, a judgment where the truth would finally be exposed in all its rawness. Tyler Dunn had no idea what awaited him that night, but I knew. And that knowledge, after months of being manipulated and exploited, gave me a power that he would never suspect I possessed. I needed a lot of courage to do what I did next. If you're enjoying this story of overcoming, hit the bell icon to be notified when we publish new stories of people who, like me, got tired of being stepped on and decided to value themselves. Arriving at the Boston Harbor Hotel, I was received by the maitre, who, checking my name on the list, led me to the main hall. The decoration was exuberant, gold and black balloons, a candy table worthy of a wedding, and a giant banner with Tyler's photo and the words, 35 years of overcoming and success. Marina came to receive me, radiant in her red dress. Mom, I'm glad you came early. Tyler should arrive in half an hour. We're all hidden for the surprise. I hugged my daughter with more force than usual, knowing that it would be the last hug before everything changed between us. She found it strange, but attributed it to the emotion of the moment. You look beautiful in that dress, she commented, adjusting my necklace. Come, let me introduce you to Tyler's parents, who came from Rhode Island especially for the party. Meeting Marina's in-laws was more difficult than I imagined. Tyler's father, Mr. Edward, had the same superficial smile as his son. His mother, Mrs. Regina, seemed genuinely kind, which made everything even more complicated. Joan, we finally meet. Tyler always speaks wonders of you, said Mrs. Regina, holding my hands between hers. I smiled politely, wondering if she would know her son's true character, or if she was also deceived by that facade. Gradually, the hall filled up. Gym friends, distant relatives, Marina's co-workers. I recognized some people from the photos I had analyzed, including two of the women with Tyler maintained parallel relationships, one of them accompanied by her husband. At 8:45 p.m., the lights went out. Raphael from Prism Projections discreetly located me in the hall and gave a positive nod. Everything was ready. I had given him a flash drive with 2 files. The first contained a harmless video of photos of the birthday boy that would be displayed when Tyler arrived. The second, programmed to start exactly at 9:30 p.m., during the main toast, contained a collection of messages, photos, and confessions. Surprise! Everyone shouted when Tyler entered the hall, guided by his best friend, who was in charge of bringing him there. The expression of genuine shock on his face quickly gave way to that rehearsed smile that I already knew so well. He hugged Marina, greeted his parents, waved to the guests. A perfect surprised host at a party he secretly already knew would happen. Marina was never good at keeping secrets. The first video began playing on the big screen. Photos of Tyler as a child, teenager, graduating in physical education, opening his first gym, marrying Marina. An emotional soundtrack accompanied the images, drawing ooh-ahs from the guests. While everyone watched, hypnotized, I strategically positioned myself near the main table, from where I would have a clear view of both the screen and the reactions of Tyler and Marina. The first 45 minutes of the party went by normally. People toasting, taking photos, praising the organization. Marina circulated radiantly among the guests, proud of the event she had prepared with so much care for the husband she believed she loved and knew. At 9:25 p.m., the master of ceremonies called everyone for the main toast. Champagne flutes were distributed. Tyler went up to the small improvised stage, pulling Marina by the hand. His parents joined them. The best man prepared to give a speech. My heart was beating so hard that I felt it could be heard, even with the ambient music. My right hand squeezed the metal in my dress pocket like an anchor that kept me firm in the storm I was about to unleash. 9:30 p.m., exactly. The screen that displayed photos from the party suddenly went dark to the confusion of the official event technician. Seconds later, the first WhatsApp message between Tyler and a woman identified only as the one from the gym appeared. My wife traveled for work. Come to my house today. There's champagne in the mini fridge and a king-sized bed waiting for you. A confused murmur ran through the hall. Tyler, still on stage, frowned, clearly not understanding what was happening. Marina looked at the screen and then at her husband, as waiting for him to explain the joke she didn't understand. Before anyone could properly react, the sequence continued. Message after message, screenshot after screenshot, explicit conversations, arrangements for meetings, intimate photos sent and received, and then like a fatal blow, the messages where Tyler talked about me. The old lady is so clueless that she doesn't even notice when I take her card. I spent $2,800 from my mother-in-law's card yesterday, and she doesn't suspect a thing. When I need more money, I just show up at her house with a smile and a French bread. Works every time. Chaos ensued. Women identified themselves in the exposed conversations. Husbands recognized their wives in the messages. Marina, paralyzed on stage, had her face transformed by the sudden and brutal understanding of what she was witnessing. Tyler, initially astonished, jumped toward the control table, shouting to turn off the projection, but Raphael had blocked the system as planned. The 6 most devastating minutes of the most expensive birthday party Boston had ever seen, ironically paid for with money stolen from me, unfolded in all their vindictive glory. When the last message disappeared from the screen, this old lady will still be useful for something else, before she kicks the bucket. The hall was almost empty. Many guests had left horrified. Others remained paralyzed, unable to process what they had witnessed. Marina had fallen seated in a chair, her face washed in tears, while her mother-in-law tried uselessly to console her. Mr. Edward was furiously arguing with his son in a corner, gesturing to the now empty screen. The few loyal friends of Tyler surrounded him, trying to create a protective cordon against the accusing looks of those who remained. And I was exactly where I had planned to be, standing erect with the 30-year service medal now visibly hanging over my dress. When Tyler finally located me in the dispersed crowd, and our gazes met, there was no more fear in my eyes, only certainty. He came in my direction, his face contorted with rage, pointing his finger at me. You crazy old woman, do you have any idea what you just did? I remained motionless, not backing down a single inch. Yes, I do, Tyler. I just showed that a son-in-law who eats behind your back deserves to be exposed to his face. Sitting at the desk in my office, I analyzed for the last time the 8047 messages saved on my laptop. 3 weeks of meticulous work, cataloging each betrayal, each expense, each lie. The evidence was organized in chronological sequences with emphasis on the most explicit ones. I took a deep breath. Today's the day, I thought, closing the computer and looking at the calendar. October 21, 2024, Tyler's 35th birthday. The golden invitation to the party at the Boston Harbor Hotel was next to my 30-year service medal. Marina had insisted that I go, saying it would be good for my recovery to get out a little. She still believed that my hospitalization at Massachusetts General had been just an anxiety attack without a specific reason. I dressed with special care, a navy blue dress, Discreet yet elegant. Pearl earrings that I bought with my first salary at Social Security, red lipstick, a color I'd had the courage to use before. In the mirror, I saw a different woman from the one who for decades accepted being invisible. I called the audiovisual technician I had hired. Fernando confirmed that he was already at the hotel preparing everything as we had arranged. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked hesitantly. I am. A son-in-law who eats behind your back deserves to be exposed to his face. I arrived at the Boston Harbor Hotel at 7:40 p.m. The grand ballroom was decorated with sophisticated arrangements in black and gold tones. A large banner announced Tyler, 35 years, celebrating achievements. Ironic, Marina came to receive me at the entrance, radiant in her red dress. Mom, I'm glad you came. Are you feeling better? I smiled. I've never been better, honey. Tyler greeted me with that fake hug that now nauseated me. Dear mother-in-law, what an honor to have you here. I observed his eyes, no trace of guilt or shame, just the unshakable confidence of someone who has never been discovered. I wouldn't miss it for anything, Tyler. By the way, I prepared a special surprise for you. He smiled, always so generous. What is it? Something you've deserved for a long time. During the next hour, I'd circle the hall, observing 180 guests, gym friends, fellow personal trainers, wealthy clients he courted, family members. I identified two of the mistresses present, a blonde who worked at the gym reception, and a married client who appeared in the messages as a special student. At 9:00 p.m., according to the party schedule, the master of ceremonies announced that there would be a surprise tribute to the birthday boy. My heart raced as Fernando discreetly positioned his equipment. Ladies and gentlemen, the mother of our dear Tyler's wife has prepared something special. Mrs. Baker, please. I walked to the improvised stage with a calmness I never imagined having. I took the microphone and looked at the silent hall. Good evening, everyone. Some of you know me as Tyler's mother-in-law. Others have no idea who I am. I'm Joan Baker, 67 years old, retired from Social Security after 32 years serving people. Tyler knows me and my credit card. Well, I noticed Tyler's expression changing, the smile freezing on his face. Today, I want to show the true face of the man we're celebrating. Fernando, please. The screen behind me lit up. The first image showed credit card statements with expenses in motel, pharmacies, expensive restaurants, all on days and times when Marina was working. In the last 18 months, Tyler used my credit card without my knowledge or authorization, spending $4,200 monthly to finance another life. The murmur in the hall grew. Marina rose from her chair, confused. But credit cards are just numbers. What really matters are the people behind those expenses. Fernando moved to the next sequence. Screenshots of WhatsApp conversations between Tyler and his mistresses. The explicit messages appeared highlighted along with dates, times, and meeting locations. Lydia from the gym meeting at the Usis Motel, March 14th. The blonde woman in the audience abruptly stood up and left the hall. Carolina, VIP client, apartment in Beacon Hill. A middle-aged man looked astonished at a woman by his side. Paula, CrossFit instructor. Anna, nutritionist. Marcella, salon manicurist. Renata, former college classmate. Each name came accompanied by explicit messages, exchanged photos, meeting plans, all meticulously organized and dated. The audience was in absolute shock. Some were filming with cell phones, others whispering in horror. Tyler advanced toward the stage, furious. You crazy old woman. Turn this off now. I remained impassive. As you yourself wrote to Lydia on June 12th, the old lady is a fool. Doesn't notice anything. Well, seems like the old lady wasn't such a fool after all. Marina was paralyzed in her place, tears streaming down her made-up face. Her gaze alternated between the screen, Tyler, and me. Marina, I continued, now addressing my daughter directly. Forgive me for exposing this way. I tried to find a less painful manner, but there's no gentle way to reveal such a deep betrayal. Tyler tried to turn off the projector, but Fernando had locked access to the system. Desperate, he shouted, this is fake. She's senile, has mental problems, takes controlled medications. I maintained my composure. Yes, I've been taking Xanax since 1998 to control a panic disorder developed after years of being mistreated in public service. The same medication that you stole from my drawer to sell at the gym, as these messages show. The next screenshot showed Tyler offering Xanax to clients as an aid for post-workout relaxation. Tyler's parents, an elderly couple who had always treated me with distant cordiality, rose embarrassed and began to withdraw. The father stopped briefly beside his son and said something I couldn't hear. At this moment Marina finally reacted. She walked slowly to the stage, passing by Tyler without looking at him. She climbed the steps and stood by my side. She took the microphone from my hand. The party is over. I ask everyone to leave. The hall began to empty rapidly. Some guests stopped to express solidarity with Marina. Others left in embarrassed silence. The two mistresses present had already disappeared. Tyler remained paralyzed in the middle of the hall, his world crumbling around him. When the last guest left, only the three of us remained along with Fernando, who discreetly turned off the equipment and left after a brief nod to me. Marina looked at Tyler for the first time. I want you out of the apartment by tomorrow. My lawyers will be in touch. He tried to approach. Marina, I can explain. Explain what? How you robbed my mother. How you betrayed not just me but her trust too. How you used our marriage as a facade while living another life. I looked at my daughter with admiration. She had always been strong, but at that moment she showed a dignity that filled me with pride. And you? She turned to me. Why didn't you tell me before? I only discovered it 3 weeks ago. I needed to be sure, gather evidence, and I feared your reaction. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. She held my hands, tears still streaming. I would always believe you, Mom. We left together, leaving Tyler alone in the empty hall, surrounded by the remains of his birthday party and the wreckage of his double life. In the weeks that followed, our lives completely transformed. Marina initiated the divorce process and discovered that Tyler had incurred significant debts in her name. She temporarily moved back to my apartment where we faced nights of crying and reflection together. How did I not notice anything? She repeatedly asked herself. Because trust doesn't come with a lie detector. I would answer, holding her hand. With the money I had saved for years, the same money Tyler tried to squander, I decided to take a bold step. At 67 years old, I bought a smaller but elegant apartment in Beacon Hill, Boston's most expensive neighborhood, a symbol of my late independence. Are you sure, ma'am? Questioned the realtor, clearly doubting that a gay-haired lady could afford a property in that area. I'm 67 years old. I worked for 32 years at Social Security. I raised my daughter alone and survived a parasitic son-in-law. I'm more sure of this than any other decision I've ever made. Marina decided to follow a similar path. She sold the apartment she shared with Tyler and accepted a job offer in New York. I need to start over, Mom. Build something new away from the memories. On the day of her move, we had coffee on the balcony of my new apartment, admiring the view of the elegant neighborhood that I now called home. You know, Mom, since childhood, I always thought I needed to take care of you, that you were fragile, vulnerable. Now, I see that you were always the stronger of us, too. I smiled, thinking about how life takes unexpected turns. No one is strong all the time, honey. I allowed myself to be used because I didn't value myself. I believed that my role was just to serve, help, be useful. I had to reach 67 to understand that I deserve respect and consideration. What will we do about the case against Tyler? The lawyer said we can seek reimbursement for the credit card expenses. I reflected for a moment. The money was important when I thought I had no choice. Now what I value most is my peace. He'll have to live with the public consequence of his actions. For me, that's enough. 3 months later, I received the first photo of Marina in New York, smiling in her new office with the city in the background. On the same day, I heard from an acquaintance that Tyler had left Boston, unable to rebuild his professional reputation after the scandal. Today, sitting on the couch in this apartment that represents my liberation, I look at the 30-year public service medal hanging on the wall. Next to it, I placed a small frame with a quote I read somewhere and never forgot. It's never too late to start over. My home now has simple rules. No one eats anything without permission, whether it's food in the refrigerator or dreams I've kept for decades. I learned that at 67, I can still reinvent myself, establish boundaries, and live with dignity. This was my story of starting over at 67. If it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs the courage to free themselves from toxic relationships. Sharing stories like mine can be the light someone needs to see that it's never too late to start over and live with dignity. Because in the end, life can begin anew at any age. You just have to decide that you deserve to be the protagonist of your own story, not just a supporting character in someone else's.